Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth McNamara and I'm the registered dietitian here at the Forest at Duke. And I'm very happy to be here today giving you this presentation on semi-homemade meals. During this pandemic, many of you have expressed to me that you're eating a lot more restaurant meals and having meals delivered than you ever had in the past. So when you have meals delivered, there's inherently less choice than you might have had at, say, a large buffet, or if you went to the grocery store more frequently shopping for yourself. And I wanted to make sure you know how to turn any meal that you have that is delivered, you did takeout or is from a restaurant, into a healthy meal using just 5 ingredients. So the idea is you only have to go to the grocery store once a week or have your groceries delivered once a week, and you only have to get 5 ingredients or 5 foods, and you'll have all the items that you need to turn any restaurant meal into a healthy meal. And what's more, it can fit into any healthy eating plan. So what are these ingredients? The first one is a whole grain of choice. So we all know that whole grains are the staple of a healthy diet. This could be brown rice, quinoa, farro, which is my personal favorite, barley. And when you're thinking about which whole grain you want to buy, you want to think about, first off, how much preparation you want to do if you plan to prepare it yourself. Some take a lot longer to cook than others. And the second thing is you want to consider what the foods are that you're going to be eating with them that week. So ideally, you are looking at a week's worth of menus at a time, or you have planned out your meals for about a week in advance, so you can make that choice. The second ingredient is whatever bean you like. This could be navy beans, black beans, pinto beans. It could also be any kind of a lentil. If you're going to buy it in a can, preferably you're going to want it to be low sodium. And if you make it from scratch, you can choose to add as much salt as you want. So the next ingredient is leafy greens, and this is a really easy one because they come pre-washed, chopped, ready to go. All you have to do is open up the bag and choose the amount you want to go into your plate. So this is a very healthy and very easy ingredient to add to any meal. The next one is your fruit of choice. And what you want to think about in this situation is what fruit is going to last for a week if you are in fact only going out once a week to get groceries or having it delivered. Some fruits last a lot longer than others. If you're somebody who is willing to buy more than 5 ingredients, then you could get 2 different types of fruits and have one that you eat sooner and then another one that you know is going to last a little longer and have that one later in the week. Or you can choose something that you know is going to last the entire week, such as an apple or an orange. The last key ingredient is going to be your vegetable of choice. And in this one, you're going to want to do similar to the whole grain and look at what you're going to be eating for the week and try to choose something that complements as many meals as possible during that week. So where are you going to get these ingredients? One easy option is to do same-day grocery delivery from Target. And you can see on the right-hand side of the screen that I tried to do this back in May, and they do have same-day delivery. Just put whatever items you want in your cart, and then you choose your delivery day. The only thing you might notice is that Target does not have a very wide selection when it comes to the whole grains. All of the other ingredients, there are a lot more choices. However, if you go to any of the other grocery stores, they do have many grains to choose from, and all you're going to have to decide is how much preparation you want to do. So, for example, are you going to want to do an instant brown rice in a bag, which is maybe 3 to 5 minutes of preparation, or are you going to want to simmer your own quinoa for a much longer time? Are you going to want to buy a head of broccoli and cut the stalks off yourself? Or are you going to want to buy the broccoli already washed, prepared, cut up, and in a steamer bag that you just stick in the microwave? So these are things that you can decide when it comes to buying your key ingredients. The next question is, how are you going to use these ingredients? The first thing you're going to want to do is identify the gaps in whatever meal you have delivered to your house. So you need to figure out what is missing from this meal so that it is a healthy meal. And then the next question is, which of the ingredients that you now have on your shelves do you need to use to make it the healthy meal? So step one is identifying the gaps in your restaurant, takeout, or delivery meal. And the first thing you want to ask yourself is, does your plate or your meal is it half filled with fruits and vegetables? And you might recognize this diagram that you're looking at as either the USDA My Plate or the Harvard Healthy Eating Plate, and they're very similar. And what they have is half a plate of fruits and vegetables. So that's going to be the first question you want to ask yourself. The second question is a quarter of the plate a whole food, grain, or starch, such as a sweet potato, brown rice, quinoa, corn, peas? All of these are intact starches or whole grains. And the last question that you want to ask yourself is a quarter of the plate a healthy protein? This could be meat, fish, nuts, eggs, or beans. So you're going to find that most of the restaurant or delivery meals that you have generally do have most of the items on this plate. What is going to be lacking is that they're not necessarily in the correct proportion. Usually it's a very small portion of vegetables and a large portion of grains and proteins. So by not eating all of what's delivered to you and adding some of the fruits and vegetables and whole grains in from your key ingredients that you now have on your shelves, you're going to have a much healthier plate. So you've already identified the gaps in your meal. Now you have to figure out what to add to it to make it a balanced plate. So if you're missing a component of the half a plate of either fruits or vegetables, that's going to be where your leafy greens come in really handy. They're particularly beneficial because they require so little preparation. Just take the amount that you need out of your pre-washed, pre-cut bag of greens, add it onto your plate, and then you can drizzle it with very healthy salad dressing such as olive oil and vinegar. You can use a little bit of olive oil and lemon, and only add the amount of salt that you need to make it palatable. Another idea is adding your vegetable of choice to a meal that comes with a mixed food where you have a hard time telling exactly how much fruit or vegetable is in there. So an example of this would be a quiche, a stir fry, a casserole. You know you can see some vegetable in there, but it's likely not half a plate. So you can be sure to add at least a quarter of a plate of your key ingredient vegetable to fill in that gap. Another idea is having your cooked grain in the freezer ready to thaw. So the day that you get your food from the grocery store, I recommend preparing the grain and then portioning it out into either a third of a cup or a half of a cup portion based on your size, and putting it in the freezer in either a baggie or a Tupperware container so that you have it ready to go the moment you need it. It's going to be a whole lot easier to swap out, say, for example, a white tortilla with brown rice if it's already cooked, ready to go, and all you have to do is put it in the microwave. So, for example, you could take a buffalo chicken wrap where the buffalo chicken is wrapped in a white flour tortilla, throw out the tortilla and use the chicken to make yourself a grain bowl, and then you can have a salad on the side and maybe a piece of fruit, and all of a sudden you have a balanced meal as opposed to what might have been delivered to you. For your fruit, you can add it to yogurt, oatmeal, a salad, or any meal that does not come with half a plate of vegetables and you don't feel like eating a second vegetable with that meal. You can then put in the fruit. You're going to find that it's really helpful to plan your meals in advance. So I'm going to give you an example of this. If you have your meals laid out for you for a whole week, you can take a look and see if there's any meals that you feel are not going to be as healthy as you might have wanted them to be. So for example, say you're looking at Friday dinner and Saturday lunch, and you can see that for Friday dinner, you have plenty of healthy options. And for Saturday lunch, you do not have quite as many, and maybe the options that are there don't appeal to you that much. So you're looking to find a more exciting and healthier Saturday lunch. You want to look at any part of the meal on Friday that you can use to add in to your meal on Saturday that would make it either healthier or one of the standard options become a little more exciting. So, for example, if you didn't want either a ham and cheese wrap or a pimento cheese croissant, and you feel that you have had a lot of chicken and salmon lately and you don't want those either, then you go to your key ingredients that you have on your shelf. So you pull out plenty of leafy greens so that you can have a large salad, and you can add a 1/4 cup of flank steak so that it has some flavor. You can add a 1/4 cup of either beans or grain for a plant-based protein on there. And then you can add some asparagus from the night before to make it a little different and not just your average salad. And then on the side, you can have some, whatever your fruit of choice was. Maybe it was a berry that week. So you haven't really had to do any cooking, yet you have a much more interesting salad than you might have had otherwise without your key ingredients on the shelf. Another option for Saturday lunch is maybe you decided you wanted salmon, but you didn't like having a macaroni salad as your side. So you put in your whole grain, which you have in the freezer ready to go. You add a small salad and you add your vegetable of choice, which you are able to easily pop in the microwave and heat up. And then you use what's there as the cut fruit to further complement that. So I know many of our residents here at the Forest at Duke are vegetarian, and I wanted to be sure to include one slide that really addressed that. So when you choose a vegetarian entree, you might wonder where it fits into the group and how to fill in any gaps. So say, for example, you chose the loaded baked potato as your entree. And you're wondering, now where does it fit into this healthy eating plate? So the loaded baked potato is a perfect example of an intact starch. So it hasn't been processed. Yet when you look down at the plate, you might realize, well, I'm not sure, is this an entire meal? So you're going to need to load it with something that is either a vegetable or a fruit or a protein. Now, I'm not sure who wants to put fruit in their baked potato, so you're going to want to turn to your ingredients on your shelf, pull out your broccoli in a steamer bag, steam up some broccoli for yourself, heat up some beans, and load it with that. So all of a sudden, what went as a not terribly healthy option with butter and sour cream now is a much healthier way of having a vegetarian entree. And then you have to ask yourself, does this broccoli encompass a full half a plate of vegetables? And if the answer is no, then you can go ahead and add a side salad to it or a piece of fruit. So my last example is another vegetarian entree example, and I actually get a lot of questions about that because people want to know, where does pasta fit in on that healthy eating plate? and what gaps am I going to have if I order, for example, manicotti as my entree. So you want to think about what foods make up the manicotti. You have the noodle, which is a grain, although it's not necessarily a whole grain. You have cheese, which is a protein food, and then you have the tomato sauce. So you need to evaluate, is that tomato sauce a full half a plate of vegetables? So the answer is it's probably not, and so you're going to need to add to it some of your key ingredients. And that is going to be totally your preference, what you prefer. Do you want to add some broccoli to that? Or would you like to eat your manicotti with a large half a plate of salad? And then most importantly, you're going to need to evaluate the portion of the manicotti, because in all likelihood, it's going to be larger than what you necessarily need. So most of the time you can cut the portion of pasta in half, and then it is within the scope of a healthy meal. So oftentimes a large portion of pasta, whether it is manicotti, lasagna, or some kind of ravioli or noodle dish, is going to have around 1,200 milligrams of sodium in it. Once you've cut that in half, particularly if it's a cheese dish, you have cut the fat and the salt in half, so all of a sudden it becomes a reasonable amount for one meal, and you also have a half a plate of vegetables with it. So overall, it's not going to ruin your eating for the day, and you get to have this comforting, hearty food, so you don't get bored with the same thing over and over again. So following the filling in the gap method for takeout, delivery, or restaurant meals comes with a lot of health benefits. The biggest one being that restaurant foods are very high in salt. So if you're someone who's trying to follow a low salt diet, which is less than 2,300 milligrams of salt a day, which most Americans get a lot more than that each day, using your own ingredients to replace part of the restaurant meal is probably going to be very beneficial. So certain ingredients are going to be high in salt no matter where they're prepared, even if you prepare it yourself. If you're using ham, bacon, prosciutto, or any cured deli meat, no matter where it comes from, it's going to be very high in salt. The same goes for cheese and for anything with a canned sauce, soy sauce, teriyaki sauce, or typical Asian seasonings like miso. Whether they come from a restaurant or you make them in your house, they're going to be very high in salt. So if you are able to cut the amount in half of any food item that you know is typically high in salt, and you replace it with an item that you know has no salt in it, or the only salt is what you have added, you're probably going to get an item that is much lower in salt altogether. And finally, adding the half a plate of fruits and vegetables is in itself adding a lot of potassium to your meal. Anytime you have sodium and potassium coming together in a meal, your body is not going to retain as much sodium and therefore as much water. This is because the sodium and the potassium have the same ionic charge, and this means they're going to be fighting for a place in your body. So the sodium and potassium cannot be inside your cells together. So the more potassium you have, the more sodium is going to be excreted because they cannot both be there. The less sodium you have, the less fluid you're going to retain. So you're probably going to feel better the next day, and it's better for your blood pressure. So overall, there are certainly plenty of health benefits to looking at your meal and filling in the gaps with fruits and vegetables, whole grains, plant-based protein, anywhere that you can. Another benefit is that you can use the filling in the gap method and buying your key ingredients to fit really any eating plan that you want. So if you are concerned with preventing dementia and you are trying to follow the MIND eating pattern, then you could choose berries, leafy greens, broccoli, beans, and whole grains like I did in this example, and you're going to be following the MIND diet. If you're worried about your inflammation, you could use cherries as your fruit and bell peppers as your vegetable of choice, and you would be following an anti-inflammatory eating pattern. And there are a plethora of whole food, plant-based food items if you are vegetarian or wanting to follow that eating pattern. Brown rice, lentils, spinach, cauliflower, and apples are 5 key ingredients that are all whole foods and plant-based that you could certainly use. So I really enjoyed presenting this information to you, and I want you to know that I'm available by phone or email to answer any questions that you have or discuss any aspect of this presentation with you further. So you can reach me at 919-354-8458 for my phone number, and my email address is emcnamara@forestduke.org, and I would love your feedback or to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks, have a good day.